You know what time it is. Woo! Get into it! Get into it! Yes! We're back. Hello, hello. Welcome back with Storytime with Chris. And we are almost done with Anne of Green Gables. We are on chapter 31 today. And there are only 7 chapters left. Well, after this, it'll be 6 chapters left. But also, I just got a notification from Google. It's 19 days until my birthday. And I still don't know what to do. I'm gonna lose my mind. I'm torn because I more than likely will go to Cleveland for my birthday. That would be a lot of fun. But I would like to at least celebrate my birthday partly here in Dayton and Yellow Springs with my friends that are here, so I can be able to have some type of celebratory nature with them. So I'm trying to iron out those details. Also, guess what? Summer is dead. Fall is here, baby. Put away the shorts. It's done. Unless you're going to somewhere that is perpetually warm, which is either far down south or far to the west. Summer is here. Summer is dead. Excuse me. Fall is here. Virgos, you are on your way out. Because in less than 19 days, on the 23rd of September, starts the autumn equinox, which is the start of Libra season. Okay, I'm an October Libra, but I stand for my September Libras, even though they are a bit quieter than the October Libras. We stand strong. We are the balance. We are the central component of all the zodiacs. And it's 555, okay? It's a cool time to be alive, okay? As always, I have to clean my glasses. And I do not, and I repeat, I do not own the music that is playing in the background, which is Bossa Nova Jazz, which apparently is from a Korean artist on YouTube. So that is pretty awesome. It's a beautiful day. I'm living for the cooler weather, the cooler nights, the quietness of the crickets playing in the background of the yard. It's nice. At least where I live. Can't speak for anybody else. But I love the sound of crickets chirping. Even if I don't have an audiobook to play, I would rather listen to that or the sound of rain pitter-pattering. Take a sip of my tea. And I'm excited for Halloween, so I got 3 costumes planned. Potentially 4, but we'll see what resources is looking like, so to speak. Ooh, bad habit, kids. Do not do that at a young age. Okay, don't crack your knuckles. But when you get older and you pay your own rent and pay your own mortgage and pay your own utilities and have your own car and put gas in your car, then you can crack your knuckles all you want. But until then, don't do it. Alright. And my buddy Archimedes here. Yes. Here he is, just being stoic and cool and full of wisdom. You know, owls are actually quite full of wisdom, and they're one of the smartest birds in the world. They can take down any prey: cats, mice, chipmunks, squirrels, shrews, dogs even. Owls are pretty powerful predators, and they can also be adorable. Yeah, they can be. Alright, you didn't come here to hear me blather. You came here to hear me read a story. So, we are back, and yes, Anne is growing up. She's growing up very quickly as time goes on in this story, and she's going to potentially go to the Queen's Academy in order to learn how to be a teacher, have a career, have a job. It's a good thing. And actually, I'm going to take a moment to pause for one quick second. Let me get you to understand something, kids. I love my job. Not because of the people I work with, which they are awesome, and I love each and every one of them. Not because of how my pay rate goes or whatever that may mean for some people. I love my job because I love going to work every day. And for me, it's not work, it's fun. It's not a chore for me to be at work. Because I was taught at a very young age, and I will teach you this. If you love, I'm going to phrase this properly. If you love what you do, you will never work a day in your life. If you love what you do, you will never work a day in your life. That's why I said earlier that my job working at Ellie's Restaurant and Bakery as a manager, as a server, host, bartender, it's not a chore for me to be at work. I love what I do for people. Even though I also have other things to take care of, which I will be getting a second job fairly soon. I love what I do for people. I love how it makes me feel to do for others and make them happy. Because the reason, in my opinion, people come to a restaurant is because they are seeking comfort in a place that they don't normally get at home. Somebody to do for you, and to do so with kindness. Not in a demeaning way, but in a way that makes you feel good to, be taken care of. I've taken care of a lot of different people. Old, young, black, white, tall, short, male, female, grieving people, happy people, sad people, angry people. And I always make it a point to try to explain that rudeness is an expression of fear. People fear they won't get what they want. That's why people act a certain way. So I don't play into that. I try to show people that I am better than what they perceive me to be. I repeat myself. You should be better than what others perceive you to be, because people will talk about you to the day you die. It's not what they call you, it's what you answer to. So I love what I do for people. I love my job, and I will continue to do what I do. That's why I do Storytime, because this is a passion project that will forever remain in my heart, and I'll do it as long as the universe will allow. All right. Okay. Chapter 31. Where the brook and river meet. Anne had a good summer and enjoyed it wholeheartedly. She and Diana fairly lived out of doors, reveling in all the delights that Lover's Lane and the Dryad's Bubble and Willowmere and Victoria Island offered. Marilla offered no objections to Anne's gypsyings. The Spencervale doctor would come the night Minnie Mayhead the croup met Anne at the house of a patient one afternoon early in vacation, looked her over sharply, screwed up his mouth, shook his head, and sent a message to Marilla Cuthbert by another person. It was, "Keep that red-headed girl of yours in the open air all summer. Don't let her read books until she gets more spring into her step." This message frightened Marilla wholesomely. She read Anne's death warrant by consumption in it unless it was scrupulously obeyed. As a result, Anne had the golden summer of her life as far as freedom and frolic went. She walked, rode, buried, and dreamed to her heart's content, and when September came she was bright-eyed and alert, with a step that would have satisfied that Spencervale doctor, and a heart full of ambition and zest once more. "I feel just like studying with might and main," she declared as she brought her books down from the attic. "Oh, you good old friends, I'm glad to see your honest face once more. Yes, even you, Geometry. I had a perfectly beautiful summer, Marilla, and now I'm rejoicing as a strong man to run a race, as Mr. Allen said last Sunday. Doesn't Mr. Allen preach magnificent sermons? Mrs. Lynde says he is improving every day, and the first thing we know some city church will gobble him up, and then we'll be left and have to turn to and break in another green preacher. But I don't see the use of meeting trouble halfway, do you, Marilla? I think we'd be better just to enjoy Mr. Allen while we have him. If I were a man, I think I'd be a minister. They can have such an influence for good, if their theology is sound, and it must be thrilling to preach splendid sermons and stir your heartstrings." "Why can't women be ministers, Marilla?" Which there are female ministers. That's a thing. "I asked Mrs. Lynde that, and she was shocked and said it would be a scandalous thing. She said there might be female ministers in the States, and she believed there was, but thank goodness we hadn't got to that stage in Canada yet, and she hoped we never would. But I don't see why. I think women would make splendid ministers. When there's a social to be got up, or a church tea, or anything else to raise money, the women have to turn to and do the work. I'm sure Mrs. Lynde can't pray every bit as well as Superintendent Bell, and I have no doubt she could preach too with a little practice. Yes, I believe she could, said Marilla dryly. She does plenty of unofficial preaching, as it is. Nobody as much as of a chance to go wrong in Abilene with Rachel to oversee them. Marilla, said Anne in a burst of confidence, I want to tell you something, and I ask you what you think about it. It has worried me terribly. On Sunday afternoons, that is, when I think specially about such matters. I do really want to be good, and when I'm with you or Mrs. Allen or Miss Stacy, I want it more than ever. And I want to do just what it would please you and what you would approve of. But mostly when I'm with Mrs. Lynde, I feel desperately wicked, as if I wanted to go and do the very thing she tells me I oughtn't to do. I feel irresistibly tempted to do it. Now, what do you think is the reason I feel like that? Do you think it's because I'm really bad and unregenerate? Marilla looked dubious for a moment. She laughed. If you are, I guess I am too, Anne, for Rachel often has that very effect on me. I sometimes think she'd have more of her influence for good, as you say yourself, if she didn't keep nagging people to do right. There should have been a special commandment against nagging, but there, I shouldn't talk so. Rachel is a good Christian woman, and she means well. There isn't a kinder soul in Abilene, and she never shirks her share of work. Shirking work is a fancy way of saying, kids, of half-stepping, or not working as hard as everybody else. That's what shirking means. S-H-I-R-K. And hi, my friend. Thank you for watching. And I, for one, work with people who don't shirk their work. I work with a good amount of people who do their fair share. I'm very glad you feel the same, said Anne decidedly. It's so encouraging. I shan't worry so much over that after this, but I dare say there'll be other things to worry me. They keep coming up new all the time, things to perplex you, you know. You settle one question, there's another right after. There's so many things to be thought over and decided when you're beginning to grow up. It keeps me busy all the time, thinking them over and deciding what is right. It's a serious thing to grow up, isn't it, Marilla? But when I have such good friends as you and Matthew and Mrs. Allen and Miss Stacy, I ought to grow up successfully, and I'm sure it will be my own fault if I don't. I feel it's a great responsibility because I have only the one chance. If I don't grow up right, I can't go back and begin over again. I've grown 2 inches this summer, Marilla. Mr. Gillis measured me at Ruby's party. I was so glad you made my new dress longer. That dark green one is so pretty, and it was so sweet of you to put on the flounce. Flounce, excuse me. Of course, I know it wasn't really necessary, but flounces are so stylish this fall, and Josie Pye has flounces all on her dresses. I know I'll be able to study better because of mine. I shall have such a comfortable feeling deep down in my mind after that flounce. It's worth something to have that, admitted Marilla. Miss Stacy came back to Abilene School and found all her pupils eager for work once more. Especially did the Queen's class gird up their loins for the fray, for at the end of the coming year, dimly shadowing their pathway already, loomed up that fateful thing known as the entrance exam. As the thought of which one all felt their hearts sink into their very shoes. Suppose they did not pass. That thought was doomed to haunt Anne through the waking hours of that winter, Sunday afternoons inclusive to the almost entire exclusion of moral and theological problems. When Anne had bad dreams, she found herself staring miserably at past lists of the entrance exams where Gilbert Blythe's name was blazoned at the top, in which hers did not appear at all. But it was a jolly, busy, happy, swift-flying winter. Schoolwork was as interesting, class rivalry as absorbing as of yore. New worlds of thought, feeling, and ambition, fresh, fascinating fields of unexplored knowledge seemed to be opening out before Anne's eager eyes. Hills peeped o'er hill, and Alps on Alps arose. Much of all this was due to Miss Stacy's tactful, careful, and broad-minded guidance. She led her class to think and explore and discover for themselves, and encouraged straying from the old beaten paths to a degree that quite shocked Mrs. Lynde and the school trustees, who viewed all innovations on established methods rather dubious. Apart from her studies, Anne expanded socially for Marilla, mindful of the Spencervale's doctor's dictum, no longer vetoed occasional outings. The debating club flourished and gave several concerts. There was one or two parties almost verging on grown-up affairs. There were sleigh drives and skating frolics galore. Between times Anne grew, shooting up so rapidly that Marilla was astonished one day when they were standing side by side to find the girl was taller than herself. "Why, Anne, how you've grown," she said, almost unbelievingly. A sigh followed on the words. Marilla felt a queer regret over Anne's inches. The girl she had learned to love had vanished somehow, and here was this tall, serious-eyed girl of 15, with the thoughtful brows and the proudly poised little head in her place. Marilla loved the girl as much as she had loved the child, but she was conscious of a queer, sorrowful sense of loss. And that night when Anne had gone to prayer meeting with Diana, Marilla sat alone in the wintry twilight and indulged in the weakness of a cry. Matthew, coming in with a lantern, caught her at it and gazed at her in such consternation that Marilla had to laugh through her tears. "I was thinking about Anne," she explained. "She's going to be such a big girl, and she'll probably be away from us next winter. I'll miss her terribly." "She'll be able to come home often," comforted Matthew, to whom Anne was as yet and always would be the little eager girl he had brought home from Bright River on that June evening 4 years before. "The branch railroad will be built to Carmody by that time." "It won't be the same thing as having her here all the time," sighed Marilla gloomily, determined to enjoy her luxury of grief uncomforted. "But there, man can't understand these things." There were other changes in Anne, no less real than the physical change. For one thing, she became much quieter. Perhaps she thought all the more and dreamed as much as ever, but she certainly talked less. Marilla noticed and commented on this also. "You don't chatter half as much as you used to, Anne, nor use half as many big words. What has come over you?" Anne colored and laughed a little as she dropped her book and looked dreamily out of the window where big fat red buds were bursting out in the creeper in response to the lure of the spring sunshine. So, a creeper is a type of ivy or vine that typically grows around windows or on the sides of houses. It's able to stick on, and flowers are able to grow there. So a creeper vine. Ooh, my tea. Getting a little parched. One of my favorite mugs. Shout out to my friend Mickey and Sarah for giving that mug to me years and years ago. Okay. "I don't know. I don't want to talk as much," she said, denting her chin thoughtfully with her forefinger. "It's nicer to think dear, pretty thoughts and keep them in one's heart like treasures. I don't like to have them laughed at or wondered over, and somehow I don't want to use big words anymore. It's almost a pity, isn't it, now that I'm really growing up big enough to say them if I did want to? It's fun to be almost grown up in some ways, but it's not the kind of fun I expected, Marilla. There's so much to learn and do and think that there isn't time for big words. Besides, Miss Stacy says the short ones are much stronger and better. She makes us write all our essays as simply as possible. It was hard at first. I was so used to crowding in all the fine big words I could think of, and I thought of any number of them. But I've got used to it now, and I see it's so much better." "What has become of your story club? I haven't heard you speak of it for a long time." "The story club isn't in existence any longer. We hadn't time for it, and somehow I think we had got tired of it. It was silly to be writing about love and murder and elopements and mysteries. Miss Stacy sometimes has us write a story for training in composition, but she won't let us write anything but what might happen in Amelia and our own lives, and she criticizes it very sharply and makes us criticize our own, too. I never thought about compositions, had so many faults until I began to look for them myself. I felt so ashamed I wanted to give up altogether. But Miss Stacy said I could learn to write well if I could only train myself to be more of my own severest critic, and so I'm trying to." "You've only 2 more months before the entrance," said Marilla. "Do you think you'll be able to get through?" Anne shivered. "I don't know. Sometimes I think I'll be all right, and then I get horribly afraid. We've studied hard, and Miss Stacy has drilled us thoroughly, but we mayn't get through for all that. We each got a stumbling block. Mine is geometry, of course, and Jane's is Latin, and Ruby's and Charlie's is algebra, and Josie's is arithmetic. Moody Spurgeon says he feels it in his bones that he's going to fail English history. Miss Stacy is going to give us examinations in June just as hard as we'll have at the entrance, and mark us just as strictly so we'll have some idea. Oh, I wish it was all over, Marilla. It haunts me. Sometimes I wake up in the night and wonder what I'll do if I don't pass. Why, go to school next year and try again, said Marilla unconcernedly. Oh, I don't believe I'd have the heart for it. It would be such a disgrace to fail, especially if the others passed. And I get so nervous in an examination that I'm likely to make a mess of it. I wish I had nerves like Jane Andrews. Nothing rattles her. Anne sighed, and dragging her eyes from the witcheries of the spring world, the beckoning day of breeze and blue, and the green things unspringing in the garden, buried herself resolutely in her book. There would be other springs, but if she did not succeed in passing the entrance exam, Anne felt convinced that she would never recover sufficiently to enjoy them. Excuse me, y'all, pardon me. That is where we shall end for today. And if you noticed, I changed Anne's voice to sound a little bit older and a little bit more mature. She's 15 now. I remember when I was 15. I was not an easy child to deal with. Shout out to my mother who knows this. I was not an easy child to deal with. I just always had to have the last word. I was talking about this today at work. 15 was an odd time for me. I just always had to have the last word. I was a bit of a smart aleck. Just was doing silly stuff. Just not really applying myself fully, but applying myself in other parts of my life. It's just a goofy time for Christopher. It was. But I'm here now, and I think I'm confident to say that I turned out really great. I'm confident to say that. So, without further ado, thank you for watching. I'll see you all next time. Bye-bye now.